stages of infectious disease. And most students get this pretty quickly as well because we understand it. Based on our own personal history and things we've already know, previous knowledge. All right, so the first stage of any disease, so you come in with contamination and then infection, and then as it's in lower amounts, so this axis here is the number of microorganisms in the environment, or the intensity of the signs and symptoms. So here we have low numbers of microorganisms, and because of that, we're not showing any signs or symptoms. If we are infected and microorganisms are present, this is considered your incubation period. There's no signs and symptoms, and this is your incubation period. This will vary based on the pathogen. Some pathogens have a very quick incubation period. Some pathogens have a very long incubation period, and that's one of the things that's so challenging with this COVID-19 is that the incubation period can be anywhere from 3 days to 14 days, which is a very long incubation period, which is why people need to self-quarantine after exposure for 2 weeks to make sure that they're not still in this incubation period. All right, following this incubation period where there are 0 signs or symptoms, you may enter a phase called the prodromal period. Now, some pathogens don't have this, some pathogens do. It also depends on the person involved, how robust they are, how healthy they are, if this period is present. You can see microorganisms are starting to grow at this point. You may have some vague symptoms, but nothing that really can be measured or you can put your finger on at the moment. If you've ever said, oh, I feel like I'm coming down with something, or your kid comes home from school and they hit the couch and you're like, something's just not right. And then sure enough, at midnight, they'll start running a fever. This is that period before really symptoms hit, but you just know something's not right. And again, not all pathogens experience a prodromal period. All right, so after the prodromal period, microorganisms are continuing to grow, and so the effects in the body are going to be evident at this point. You will get signs and symptoms that start to appear. So as the microorganisms increase in number, this is when you're sick. So this is called the illness stage. As the microorganisms continue to grow, you get more severe signs and symptoms from that. Your immune system has not really responded. This is a disease you've never seen before. Your immune system is checking it out, seeing if it does a response, and the numbers of bacteria or pathogen are overwhelming the immune system and has not fully responded. This is considered the illness period. All right, we're continuing along our timeline here. Time is passing. At some point, your symptoms, your signs and symptoms will start to resolve. This is when your immune system has kicked in. Your body is fighting it. It is getting rid of the numbers of microorganisms. Or you may be giving some drugs, some antimicrobial, some antibiotics that are killing the bacteria and lowering these numbers and allowing your body to recover from this. This is defined as the decline stage of the disease, and so you'll get better from this. As the numbers continue to decrease, your signs and symptoms will disappear. You may have some that remain. Sometimes with respiratory diseases, a cough can remain for weeks, even after the bacteria or the virus has disappeared. So some signs and symptoms may remain, but you're getting better. And this is the convalescent stage. Again, depends on the pathogen. Some pathogens have a very long convalescent stage. Also depends on your health before you get there. Children seem to bounce back very quickly, return to health immediately, versus older people who have a less robust immune system, where it may take them a very long time to fully get over something. So this is the convalescent stage at this point. Now, if you are in the illness stage, if the microorganism continues to do damage, if you cannot, your immune system or any drugs that we have at our disposal are not working, you may not enter decline, and this is where fatality occurs, when the illness just overwhelms the body, and that happens. All right, so those are stages of an infectious disease. Let me know if you have questions with that. Most of that we are familiar with. So that is the stages. What else? Let's see if I can move on to the next slide. Okay, so we're finished talking about diseases. We've had pathogens move in. We've had the damage, that change of a state of health for the disease. The next session is about the exits, portal of exits. So how do the pathogens get out of the host? We already kind of addressed that with cholera, that extreme diarrhea. is an exit strategy of the pathogen. If it's a respiratory disease, and this is where your virus is, exit strategies, sputum, saliva, secretions from your nose, from that. This is why we're so concerned about respiratory droplets with the COVID-19. Sexually transmitted infections, vagina, urethra, from that, testicles, all of that, semen, all of those are exit strategies. If it is a skin disease, you will have lesions. Sorry, lessons from my kitchen table. That was my dog going in and out. And so you might have lesions, and through the skin, you might get that. So any of these portals of exit is the movement of the pathogen out of the host. It is the same thing as portals of entry, as you've noticed, I'm sure, but it does include bodily fluids. So you may not come in contact with another person's mouth, but you may come in contact with the sputum as they're talking or spitting from that. You may come in contact with those droplets. Picking up tissues from someone who's had the flu and is blowing their nose, and then someone else comes behind there and picks up the tissues, may have the secretions, nasal secretions on there. So that can happen. Coming in contact with blood. Milk can also transmit pathogens. Most of the time when you're breastfeeding, you've exposed your breastfeeding infant already just based on normal caregiving interactions. And so for most pathogens, when you're sick, most doctors will say with most diseases, you can continue to breastfeed, and those antibodies that you're passing along in the breast milk outweigh the risks of the pathogen, because more than likely, again, the infant's already been exposed based on other ways. There are a few diseases where they tell you not to breastfeed, so you do need to check with your doctor about that. Feces, that's another fecal to oral contamination, like the cholera when that comes out with the diarrhea. This is the way bacteria get out, and then the next person can get it.